Alright, hello there and welcome to another design tutorial, and in this one we're going to be talking about how to actually create title designs in Illustrator. And this video is going to be a little bit of a follow-up from our previous video that we did on understanding type. And if you haven't seen that one, I would encourage you to watch that first before starting with this one. Because in this one, we're really going to try to put all of the ideas that we learned in the previous video into this one. And some of you may be wondering why I am not using Photoshop to create these titles, and that is because in Photoshop it's pixel based, but Illustrator is actually vector based, meaning that Illustrator will be better for this because say you have to put this design on a huge building or on a billboard. If you blow that up in pixels, the quality may go down, but with vector the quality isn't going to go down. So vector obviously in this case is better. So that's why I'm using Illustrator. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have my grid set up properly. So I'm going to go up to Edit, then down to Preferences, then Guides and Grid. And I'm going to have a grid line set to 72 pixels, which is 1 inch, and there's going to be one subdivision. I like that. Press OK. Now we have to go up to View and then press Show Grid. Now our grid has appeared, and we're going to press Control R or Command R if you're on a Mac. Now I want to see this actually in inches, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Document Setup, and then I'm going to set the units to inches. Press OK. Now I have my inches here. Alright, good. So now we're going to set up our guides. So what I'm going to do with my selection tool, I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to drag over a guide like this and try to get it on that first inch. And I'm going to press Z to pull up my zoom tool, zoom in. And then I'm going to get this on this line here. Now I'm seeing that my guide is locked right now, so I need to unlock it. So I'm going to go up to Window, and then I'm going to go down to my guides and press Unlock Guides so I can move it. And you can also do this by pressing Control, Alt, and Home. Good, so now I can move it and just make sure that it's on that line perfectly. This has to be perfect. Alright, so now I have my first guide here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to drag over another guide like this. Just like that. And I'm going to line him up so that he is perfectly on this line, perfectly on this 2nd inch mark. All right, that looks good. Pull out. And I'm going to bring over one more guide. Now, there's another way to do this if you don't want to have to drag over all the time. You just press Alt or Option if you're on a Mac, I believe. And then you pull over, and then you have your guide here. And now I'm going to zoom in. Make sure he's lined up. Get really tight in here. You see he's not completely on it. Maybe even tighter. That looks good. Good. And the second one I'm going to check as well. Yeah, the second one has to be moved over a little bit also. Let me check the first one as well. It's really tedious, but it has to be done right. The small things matter. Okay, good. So now that we have our guide set up, we can turn off our grid. So hide grid. And we have our guides now. Awesome. Now what we're going to do is we are going to type out some text. So the text that I have for this is the Bio Health Resort. So I'm going to bring up my text tool and I'm going to type it out like this. And then I'm going to add another line right here. So for this first text here, I'm going to use the font of MK Latino Plain, which is a Spanish font, I'm assuming, because of the name. And Valle in Spanish means worth it. So that's the font I'm going to use. And for the second text here, I'm going to give it the font of something really clean. So Proxima Nova. That's a good font. And we can make this guy, we'll make him Proxima Nova Light. So there are 3 steps that you want to follow in this. The first is setting your position. Second is your kerning or tracking. And last is your leading. And you can switch these up however you want to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just get it where I want it to be. So over here, and I'm going to scale this guy up so that he fills the entire thing like that. And then I'm going to drag him down, and to drag him down so that he goes down really smooth without moving to the side, you hold down shift. And then for resort, I'm going to see how he would look if I did it left aligned like that. All right, so now that I know the general position of where my text is going to be, I'm now going to start working on the tracking and the kerning. So I'm going to zoom in here. I'm just going to make sure that this guy is lined up very tight and perfectly on our guide here. Yep. Zoom in really tight. That looks good. Zoom out. And then this guy over here, I'm going to make sure that he is on our O. So he's not quite there. So I'm going to make him a little bit bigger. Right about there. Something around there. Now with this V and the A, I think there's not enough negative space and I'd like to give more to that. So what I would do is I would actually click here, click in here, and then you press Alt and right arrow, and it moves your text over a little bit. Like that. So if I zoom out, I think the spacing looks a little bit better. Maybe even more I can go over. One more time. That's probably too much, but let's see. Oh, I think that works. I think that'll work. Yeah, let's go with that. Now, since we've done that, we're going to make this guy a little bit smaller. Right about there. And with this O here, I'm going to leave this O hanging over a little bit. That is because when you have round shapes, you always want to give them a little space over. Because if they line up, it may give the impression that the text just isn't even. So if I zoom in to show you guys this right here, and I try to make this text really line up with the bottom text somehow, and I'll pull this guy over just to show you. And I zoom out. It just doesn't feel as even. So what I want to do is I want to actually push this O over our guide a little bit. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z to do that. Like that. And then if I push my text over, like right about there, and then if I zoom out, turn my guide off, it looks a little better. I'm actually going to push this O over a little bit more, even more. So that looks better to me. And this rule of pushing curved letters over applies also to things like rounded zeros or to D's or to S's. Any character that has a curve to it, you want to apply this rule to. Now there can be an exception to this rule though. Let me duplicate this to show you. So I'm going to press Alt and pull this up. Press Shift to lock it in place. And now I'm going to change this to Babus Noyes. Notice that the O here is not very round. It's actually a very vertical O. So if I pull it over, if I make this bigger, and if I turn this guy off so that you can see it better, like that, drag this guy down, make him a little bigger. Over here. Since this O is so vertical, I will not have to worry about pulling him over. So when you have very vertical characters, this rule does not apply. Very good. Now we're going to focus on the tracking and kerning down here for Health Resort. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pull Health Resort over right here, pull it over, and I'm going to start the tracking from this center point over here. Zoom in to get it really tight. Like that. Good. And then I'm going to track it out a little bit just to space this text out. Good. Zoom in a little bit. Let's see if I can track this T out a little bit more. 21. That seems to do it. Oh, not quite. If I go further, what's going to happen? I'm going to overshoot. All right, so it's not going to make it fully there, but thankfully there's a way around this. If you press Shift T, your cursor changes to the character select tool. And notice that with this tool, I'm able to move individual characters to wherever I want them to be. And I don't have to affect the tracking over here. So I'm going to press Control Z to put that back to where it was. And then I'm going to press Z to zoom in really tight here, really tight. And then press V and then Shift T again. Select my character, it's selected. And then I'm going to press Shift and then drag this guy over a little bit. All right, so it's not letting me get it. That way I'm going to try something else. I'm going to try scaling this. So I think that's it. All right, good. So I'm going to zoom out now. Make sure that this guy is still lined up and I didn't move anything over. The H is moved over a little bit. I'm going to press Shift T. All right, so there we go. There we have our title that has just been made. Now we need to focus on the leading or the spacing in between these two lines of text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and I need to make a measurement somehow. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to use this line of the H here for my measurement. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to press M. I'm going to drag out a box like this. And now I have something that's the same height. So I'm going to go up here. Make sure that this is on it. Good. And if you want to see the actual points, all you have to do is go up to View and then select Outline. And you can see the outline of your box. I'll switch that back. And now I'm going to move my text up. Zoom in, really tight, like this. Make sure you don't move your text over. So here we have it with our guides. Everything looks lined up and good. So this would be a simple title design that you could do. And also with the rectangle here, you can also do different measurements of this. So say you wanted to do like half, how would you do this? Well, all you would do is you would simply zoom in like this, and then I would duplicate this, pull it over, and then you go up to outline once more, and then you're gonna drag this up to the halfway mark right here. And instead of doing the whole thing as your measurement, you could have also done like half, like right around here or so. And you can also use things like thirds. So you could even push this further up. You could push this up to a third, and then you could even like grab it here and then put it right about there, and then bring your text to like down here or something. So that's how you can work with the measurements, and that's how you do your leading. But let's say we wanted to make another copy. How could we do this? And we want it this time to center this health resort text. Well, we could select it all. So you select all your text, and then you press Alt and then Shift, and you drag down like that. And then I'm going to drag this text over, and I'm going to put him in the middle. And then I'm going to put him in the middle. And when you center things, you need to make sure with your last letter that on the properties, the tracking is set to 0, because the extra space that is here, say if this was like 40 or 30, that would throw off where the center of the text would be. So make sure that this is 0. And there you have it. You have text that is centered now. And now we could also add more to this. Say we wanted to add like a black bar that you see sometimes on logos. All you have to do is go up to your rectangle tool. Then I'm going to zoom in, press M for the rectangle tool. And then I'm going to use this L for my measurement. And I'm going to draw out a rectangle like this. Go to the outline to make sure that that is exact. Zoom in. Good. And then you're going to drag this guy down here. And I'll turn on the view, GPU preview, rotate this guy. Now this guy feels way too big, I already know, so I'm going to make this guy half. And now I have my black bar. And for the spacing between this T and the black bar, I'm going to use this measurement right here, the space in between the H and the R. And I'm going to go from the end of this T till it intersects right about there. And then I'm going to pull this guy up. And then I'm going to drag this guy over here till they intersect. And to make this a little easier, I'm going to change the color actually. So I'm going to go to Properties, go to the Fill, and I'll make this guy red, just so that I can see it a little bit better. Zoom out. Now I want to make sure that this guy is centered with my text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another measurement of my R here. And then I'm going to line up this text here with this bar. So you saw how it intersected with that purple line there. So now that I have this done, I am simply going to follow the same process and move everything over to the other side. So that's just a quick way that you can do titles in Illustrator. Now, if you wanted to say show this to like a client that you had, all you would have to do is simply drag this into Photoshop like this, Control C and or Command C if you're on a Mac. Go into Photoshop, press Control V or Command V if you're on a Mac, and then I'll just save this as a smart object, scale it up, something about that. And then I'm going to center this, so I'm going to select the entire canvas, make sure that this guy is centered, like that. And then I'm going to put a ruler on here. And I'm going to turn this guy off, and then I'm going to copy in the next design. Paste as a smart object, and then I'm going to drag this guy up so that he fits inside the rulers that I created for my last title. Now I'm going to make this guy a little bit bigger. Make sure he's centered. Turn off my guides. And then all you would do is you would simply export these and you could show them to a client. So this is the first one, and that's the second design that we did. So I know this was a really basic tutorial on how to do title designs, but I hope you learned something in this tutorial. If you want to learn more, feel free to subscribe, and we will see you in the next tutorial. Until next time.